Good evening. Welcome everyone to Faith in Place, to our December monthly call. Our title and topic tonight, the real cost of free shipping. We're excited, that you are with us this evening, and just excited to share this information with you. Your presence makes me wonder if you wondered about this topic, and so we're glad to be here tonight to share some important information with you. Our mission at Faith in Place is to empower people of diverse faiths and spiritualities to be leaders in advancing environmental and racial justice. We do this by providing you resources to educate, connect, and advocate for healthier communities. And so we're grateful for your presence tonight, and excited to go through this topic with you and engage you in conversation as well. I'd like to share some norms with you. Some of you may be very familiar with these if you join Faith in Place in our monthly calls often, but certainly starting with respect. We are a multi-faith community, and so we respect all faith traditions. We ask that you listen to understand. This is particularly important when we're in our breakout rooms and each of you have an opportunity to share that we are listening to one another. And also with that, taking space and making space, making sure that we don't dominate and allow other people space to share their experiences. Using mute, and again, you are free to use the camera mute on Zoom, but also using mute when you're not speaking on the microphone. And then also, if you're having technical difficulties, feel free to chat either in the regular chat, or you can chat someone who has Faith in Place. The name Faith in Place, you can see there's a primary name of Faith in Place in our audience here. That's our tech person who will help you if you have any problems. Moving forward, also, as we will be having breakout rooms towards the end of this session, we'd like to do that by region. And so we'd like everyone to change your name so that we can identify what breakout room to put you in. So first of all, in the window that has your picture, that has your camera, if you hover your mouse over that, you will see the 3 dots. Click those 3 dots and it will allow you to change your name. And we would like you to put one of these numbers. As you can see on this screen, Jaleesa's name has the number 1 in front. That number correlates to a breakout room. And so depending on which of these areas you are in, please put that number in front of your name. Again, if you hover over where your video shows, your camera shows, you'll see the 3 dots. Click those 3 dots. A menu will come up, which will say rename, and then you can put one of these numbers in front of that, and that allows us to put you in a breakout room. If you're struggling with that, no worries. We'll get you in a room towards the end regardless, but this would help put you in a room where you're having conversation with people who are in the same region. And that'll be a more meaningful experience for you. I'm going to invite Wade to come. Thank you, Cosmic Shaman. Unfortunately, had technical difficulties, but I think we all got a sense for the land acknowledgement. So thank you so much. And then now I'm going to ask Wade to come and introduce himself and share our invocation for the evening.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Reverend Wade Halpa. I am Southern Illinois' outreach coordinator for Faith in Place down in far Southern Illinois. At this time of year, people of many faiths and people who couldn't name their faith have gratitude and generosity move to the front of their minds. We shift to thinking about what we're thankful for, to what would be a good gift for someone else, to year-end donations to our favorite charities and drives for those in our community in need of food and warm clothing. As we obtain gifts from those we care about, we're reminded often about how many shopping and shipping days are left and how we can get those gifts to the people they're intended for. We can get very intent on making sure the gifts get to their appointed places at their appointed times. At the very same time, we usually don't think about the impact of the gifts we are giving and shipping we are using on our neighbors. We punch refresh on the tracking page, wait to hear that a package has arrived, or watch out the window of the door for delivery. We don't see the trucks idling as the package is carried to the door. We don't see truck after truck pulling in and pulling out from the hub in a cloud of exhaust. As a Christian, my faith speaks to humble beginnings and a gift to all creation at this time of year. My behavior doesn't always match that care in this season. My hope for all of us on this call and in our houses of worship is that at this time of many holy days, we can give gifts to all creation and to all of our neighbors, not just our family and friends. At this time, I get to hand it over to the Reverend Brian Souter, who's our executive director. I get to tell you that his Christmas wish for this year is to be named the starting quarterback of the Illini, and that because he is a preacher, we're going to get a sermon and a call for an offering up next. Brian?
All right. Thank you, Reverend Wade Halva, for that invocation and that kind introduction. For the staff team that knows me, they know I'm a big Illini football fan. But even though I'm an Illini football fan, I'm also celebrating now Wisconsin and Indiana, because Faith and Place has merged with Hoosier IPL, Wisconsin IPL. And what that has meant is, as executive director, I've gotten the chance to travel a lot to Indiana and Wisconsin. And I want to tell you tonight how encouraged I am when I travel together and sit down with folks from across all three states to talk about the vision and mission of Faith and Place, what we're doing with our green teams. It is inspiring to me. I sit down with people from rural parts of their states, from semi-urban, urban parts of their states. I've sat down with the Republicans, with Democrats, with people of diverse religious traditions. All of us care about the land we share, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. And that is the network of Faith and Place. And that's the sermon that Reverend Wade alluded to that I want to give to you tonight, that we are Faith and Place. We need each other. We need each other as our climate crisis becomes worse and worse, as the local atrocities continue to happen. We need one another. And that's really what Faith and Place does. We are building a network where we're connected with each other, where we build love for one another. We know what's going on in each other's regions, and we know that we need each other. And together, as people of diverse faith, diverse spiritualities, we can support each other in creating the world that we like to see together. We need each other. I was in Madison this week for an event that Cosmic Shaman, our newest hire from Wisconsin, our outreach coordinator there, was at, along with our policy coordinator from Wisconsin, Alexander. And I was in the room and I was giving this very sermon about how we need each other and how we're connected. And somebody from the audience said, well, it sounds like Faith and Place is trying to herd the cats. And I said, well, with the right attitude, anything is possible. Possible? Possible. And that's what we're really doing. We come together. You all know what it's like in congregational life. As a green team, you're trying to herd the cats, right? You're trying to get everybody together and on the same page. And that's when our green team coaches come in from the local community and help you focus and help you take a project to the next step. And that's what we're doing at Faith and Place by building this network across the three states, is that we're bringing us together as a bunch of vivacious advocates that like to meow and to let our voice be known. And we're bringing it together in a chorus and a harmony that sings loud and makes a difference, not only in our own communities, but in communities across the world. And so with that, I want to give you a chance to support tonight the good work that Faith and Place is doing to herd the cats. If you think that anything is possible, I can't help it. I love the puns. The staff team knows. If you want to make Faith and Place the cat's pajamas, you can give tonight to support Faith and Place and the green team coaches that are doing this work and building the network that we have. And I think we have a slide to show you. And on the slide, you'll see that I have great news tonight. Every dollar you give, because of the generous contribution of the Amanda Hamlin Climate Justice Fund, your gift tonight will be doubled for up to $10,000. So if you have $25 you can give tonight, that means it's worth $50 at Faith and Place. If you have $100, worth $200. If you have $1,000, worth $2,000. So you can visit the link in the chat. Thank you for your support. I know many of you on this call have already donated this year. It means the world to us. It helps us grow the vision of a network that's connected together, taking on care for our common home. Thank you so much. And with this, I get the chance to introduce two amazing staff members leading our outreach and our green team coaching. And that's the Reverend Veronica Johnson, Faith and Place's outreach director, and Reverend Cindy Shepard, Faith and Place's green team director. I turn now over to the two of you to carry us forward.
Thanks, Brian. And I am so excited because Cindy and I are going shopping. Hi, Cindy. How's your shopping?
Veronica.
How's your shopping going? You finding any deals out there?
Oh, yes, I am. I am doing pretty good with the deals, but not so much with the out there. I mean, I'm mostly shopping online this year, aren't you?
Well, of course I am. I mean, who wouldn't? You can pretty much get anything online and get it the same day, next day too, but they're actually offering same day these days. But shh.
I know. Isn't it great? I mean, I can shop right from the comfort of my own home. It's wonderful. And yet I think I know why you said shh.
Yes, I mean, these companies are making it so convenient and so easy and fast to shop and have your items shipped the same day. But
we both know there is a cost to same day shipping and next day shipping and even so-called free shipping.
right, the pollution from all those trucks and airplanes and making sure we get all our stuff the same day when we really don't even really need it the same day. And it surely is not free. It's costing us. Reminds me of what my dad used to say, nothing in life is free.
Veronica, your dad was a wise man.
More than you know. Let me know if you want to do some local shopping. There's some great shops right down the street on 53rd.
Ooh.
I'll shut down this computer. It's more fun to go out anyway. I'll see you later.
Thanks. Let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you. We will now pass this presentation over to our policy coordinator in Illinois, Christina Cross, who will teach us more about why it's important to think twice before we choose that same day or next day shipping. Christina?
All right. Can y'all hear me okay? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see the slides okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, I need to go back one though. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. And thank you to Veronica and to Cindy for showing us that free, next, and same day shipping does have a cost. So from our friends at Warehouse Workers for Justice, they did a report earlier this year called For Good Jobs and Clean Air. And they had an opening quote in that study that I wanted to share with you today because I think it was very telling and really helps kind of illustrate what we're talking about here today. So in the era of same-day delivery, it's easy to forget that most of the objects we use every day are made of materials that are extracted and assembled overseas. And they're shipped to a US coastal port, hauled by a trucker to a distribution center, then transported to a warehouse. Inside that warehouse, it passes through the hands of packers and pickers and delivery drivers to find its way to either a store shelf or your front door. The shipping containers, the port vehicles, the drayage, long haul trucks that move our goods, they run on fossil fuels like diesel that pump our air full of fumes that are toxic to the public health and to the environment. And these fossil fuels that power our supply chain are the driving force of the climate crisis, filling the atmosphere with greenhouse gases, disrupting natural systems, exposing people to sickness and leading them to premature death. Now that's kind of a downer at the holidays. So we are not helpless here, though. There is a coalition of folks like many of the logos that you see here that we are working with to see what we can do to build healthier communities and reduce diesel pollution across Illinois and, as we know that air pollution has no boundaries, into Indiana and Wisconsin as well. So let's start by talking about what diesel pollution actually is in the first place. Let's just kind of orient ourselves to what that is. So you have kind of two things happening here. You have smog and you have soot. Smog is when organic chemical fumes and gases from burning fossil fuels kind of cook together up in the atmosphere in the sunlight and they make ozone. And then fine particulate matter is that stuff that's coming out of the vehicles and power plants and smoke. And when we mix these things together with heat and sunlight, we've got problems. And that is what causes all of the health impacts in our states. So where do we find this kind of air pollution? Well, it occurs in lots of places in our communities. And so you may think, oh, well, I don't have that problem where I live. You might be wrong. This is just a map of the metropolitan area of Chicago, but this could just as easily be Gary, Indiana. There are lots of facilities, TDL facilities. TDL stands for Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics. I had to look that up today, which, you find these all over the place. And you can see kind of on this map here, all the little green dots are the different warehouses, which would be considered like these TDL facilities. So you've got loading and unloading, you've got fueling, you've got rail yards, warehouses, all of those things, are in our communities, and they're not regulated. So that's really a problem for air quality in our neighborhoods. Also, you're going to find this problem along busy roads and interstates. You're going to find industrial and construction sites have higher levels of pollution. And along bus lines or places where buses are parked, this is also a problem. I live in rural central Illinois, and so I was thinking, oh, well, this isn't really so much of an issue where I live. And then I realized I live across the street from a school where there are at least 10 buses parked 2 times a day, every day. So it is a problem, even in rural places as well. So why does this matter? Why do all these fossil fuel powered trucks and heavy duty vehicles matter? Well, there are major climate impacts. So these trucks are only about 7% of vehicles, but they produce 67% of NOx. They present 59% of particulate matter. They make 36% of the greenhouse gas emissions from on-road vehicles. So they are a huge chunk of the impacts in our air quality and in our climate. And so we know that transportation is, at least in Illinois, and this trends nationally, our greatest source of greenhouse gas emissions. So they have a much greater share of pollution than other things, and it's really hurting our communities. So I took this kind of map from this link down here that you can see, showing you where the biggest impacts are in the various states where Faith in Place operates. So we've got Indiana and Wisconsin and Illinois right through here, and you can see a lot of red and orange in those areas. So this diesel pollution that produces health impacts puts our cancer risk in Illinois at 5th out of the states. Indiana's at 9th, and Wisconsin is 29th. Those are all still pretty high risks of cancer from diesel soot. And if you add up the projected deaths that happen from this kind of pollution, it's almost 800 people in these 3 states. And then the health damages that can result and the costs in our health, again, from these 3 states, if you add it up, it's $8.5 billion in health damages, again, from the health impacts of diesel pollution. That's an awful lot of money. And as you might imagine, these costs are not borne equally across our communities. Who is breathing in the most diesel pollution? Our brothers and sisters of color are disproportionately affected by this diesel pollution. And so as people of faith and justice, there's got to be something we can do about that. So what can we do about that? We're going to talk about a couple of different things that we can do about that today. So there are 2 administrative rules that states can adopt that will help combat this diesel pollution. One is called the Advanced Clean Trucks Rule, or ACT for short. We love our acronyms. And the other is called the Heavy Duty Omnibus Rule, which is the HDO. So let's break those down just a little bit right now. So again, individual states can adopt these rules. These are tools that they have to combat this pollution. The Advanced Clean Trucks Rule would take a step-by-step, incremental approach to taking new trucks and buses and making them be emission-free, zero emission, by 2050. So it takes place takes effect 2 years after it's adopted, giving manufacturers a little bit of time to scale up. And again, it starts out low and it ramps up over time, so that eventually any new truck that a trucking company, for example, might purchase will be a zero emission truck as they retire the old ones. So that's the Advanced Clean Trucks rule. The Heavy Duty Omnibus rule will require the nitrogen oxide, which is some people call NOx, and particulate matter emissions to be slashed dramatically, 90%, than the current federal standard by 2027. Now, that doesn't seem like it's very long from now, and it's not, but this starts in the model year 2024, and again, incrementally ramps up to the model years again in 2027, and again, these heavy duty trucks. So it's reducing their emissions standards incrementally from 2024 again up to 2027. This map here is of the states that have adopted the ACT rule that we just talked about. You can see those states in blue, and I believe there was one more state recently that adopted it. So there's probably one more on here that isn't reflected in this map. So these are the states that have said, we're going to adopt this Advanced Clean Trucks rule in our state and make this policy where we live. There's another policy kind of thing that some of the states have done called heavy duty MOU, and there were several states that had signed that as well. But as you can see, the Midwest has been pretty quiet, silent on this issue right now. Oops, I touched the wrong button. So let's make sure. Okay. So why should we care about this? And again, we all here are people of faith and we're people of justice. So we want to protect the most vulnerable community members from premature death and negative health effects from this diesel pollution. I think we all probably know someone who would fit in this category right now, right? But there are other things that benefit when we create these policies. They create jobs in a just transition. And in fact, the largest number of jobs that will be added in this new green economy that we're trying to build will come in this component manufacturing and the charging infrastructure construction. These are well-paid jobs, and they will be, there'll be a lot of them, abundant jobs, so that we can build these electric trucks and build these electric buses that we need. So it benefits the economy, right? Also, consumers and truck fleet owners save money. Yes, an electric truck costs more than a diesel-powered truck up front, but once you realize the fuel savings, that very quickly diminishes. Also, part of this charging helps to stabilize our grid and would actually lower electricity rates for consumers, and even more as we shift to renewable energy sources as we electrify things. So lots of benefits from these policies. So I'm asking for a little bit of help from my friends in Wisconsin, Indiana, and Illinois. I want to hear stories from you about how we can create a clean energy future and how diesel pollution has negatively affected your health or maybe the health of your community. There is a form here you can access through using that QR code, or you can use the link that I believe is being put in the chat, where you can share your story about how diesel pollution has affected your health or the health of your community. So we can gather these stories and start to tell policymakers how this is affecting us. And again, I live in Illinois, and so I, go regularly to the State House and talk to people in Illinois, but we have policy folks in Wisconsin, in Indiana, that can collect these stories too, and, use this to talk to policymakers in those states. So we want to hear from you about how this affects you and what you would like to see done about it. But I also want your action on sending a letter to the EPA. So I woke up this morning trying to prepare for this webinar, and to my chagrin, there was an article this morning about how the EPA is set to finalize a rule next week that's aimed at curbing smog-forming pollution from heavy-duty trucks. Unfortunately, some people who are close to this work in the EPA don't think that those standards are as strong as they should be. And this really undermines the commitment that I think this current administration has shown to caring about environmental justice. And so we need to let the EPA administrator, Michael Regan, know that we want the strongest standards possible. When these standards were open for comment earlier this year, many environmental groups like Faith in Place commented to say, you know, you need to have the strongest possible standards. And we need to let them know again. Maybe we need to remind them that we need the strongest heavy-duty engine and vehicle standards possible. And so also in the chat will be put a link to a petition that will go directly to Michael Regan, our EPA administrator, to say, as a person of faith and justice, my brothers and sisters of color are impacted disproportionately to this pollution, and we need the strongest possible standards to make a healthier community all around where we live. So I just gave you a lot of information. I will, let's see, bring back up my screen so I can see you all. And I would love to answer any questions that you might have. I will also be in the Central Illinois breakout room because we will be talking about some questions we might have and some reactions we might have to this kind of about how our communities are experiencing this pollution, what we could do about it, how we feel about that, what are our solutions. We're going to talk about that in the breakout groups today. So I'll be joining the Central Illinois group to talk about that. But your coaches are all ready, and your discussion leaders are all ready to talk about this and lead us through some conversations about what we can do about it. But before that, let's see if there's any questions. I think Cindy was going to.
I am here, yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Christina. Let's all give Christina a round of applause here. It's a lot of information. And I think that you all ought to know that Christina was born in Detroit and has vehicles and engines in her DNA. So she has been interested in how transportation sector was influencing our climate fight from the very beginning, and it has been a wonderful resource in helping us figure these things out and giving us things to do about it. So I encourage you to, if you're not able to take a minute, and I hope you don't, I hope you'll stay engaged with us and ask some questions, but if when you have a moment, that you'll have that link handy to let the EPA know that we want strong rules. And we're really serious about wanting to hear your stories about the impact of this kind of pollution has in your community. Where have you noticed it? What's the health of school children like where you are? Are there long bus rides in your district? All these things are really important, and policymakers need to be reminded of human stories. So please share those with us. I'd love to see your notes or your questions in the chat. Yes, feel free to add your questions to the chat. Christina, let me ask you a question. Besides our hope in action, in taking action, can you tell us about some other sort of hopeful signs about the change to more clean transportation, specifically in the Midwest? And who's inventing better ways of getting around?
Yeah, so I mean, as you might imagine, doing innovating in this way is very interesting and can be very profitable. And so right here in Central Illinois, we have Rivian, which is building many of the heavy duty trucks that will be, finding their way throughout the Midwest, but throughout the country, delivering our packages. Some companies are finding it beneficial to make statements about how they are committed to, doing things on behalf of the environment. And, they know that consumers care about those things. And so they make these commitments and they make these statements, and then, sometimes it's good for business. So I think of companies that, are trying to invest in more of these electric vehicles that, Rivian is building. And then maybe we feel a little less bad about buying our things online and whatnot.
So my Amazon packages might get delivered by a Rivian someday soon. Is that what you're
telling
me?
Soon.
I hope so. I hope so.
I see them on I-57 all the time. I live right off of I-57, and I do see them going down the highway. They are coming.
Here's another question, and it's about sort of the technical details you shared with us. What were the names of those two rules again that we are advocating for? And are those things that have been introduced into state legislatures, or are those national?
Yeah, so the states will adopt them. So your pollution control boards, your state EPAs are the ones that will be adopting these rules. So it's less that we need to put like pressure on legislators and more that we need to talk to our EPA and our pollution control boards. So, that can be directed, sometimes the governor can say, hey, let's make sure we're doing this kind of thing. So there is, leadership that needs to happen around adopting these rules. And so the names of the rules again were the ACT rule, the Advanced Clean Truck rule, and then the heavy duty omnibus rule. So these will be gearing up, some states will be adopting them, in the next year or two, again, because some of the model year stuff is starting like in 2024. So they've got a little bit of time to get up to speed on these. You will be hearing a lot more about this in 2023 though, for sure.
Great, thank you so much. Rachel asks, what are concerns about the delivery drones that some corporations are investigating and investing in right now?
Ooh, I don't know anything about drones.
You're a car person, but drones.
Yeah, I am a car person.
They're up in
drones
the air.
Are kind of scary. It seems to me like a drone would be, certainly a fossil fuel free or a much less impactful way to do things, right? But I feel like there's privacy concerns there and just general other concerns there. So I don't know much about drones, but boy, now I guess I'm going to look that up in my nightmares.
Thanks for a new worry, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks.
That's great. Here's another question from Christina. Does the EPA not require these rules to be adopted? Like, are these rules voluntary?
Right. So they're adopted state by state. Could there be a national approach to all of these rules? Yes, of course, there could be. But currently, the way a lot of environmental regulation is happening, it's up to the states. I think we've seen this happening for the last, year or so. So both and we could absolutely talk to EPA and be like, we need some strong national standards. We could also absolutely talk to our state EPA and say, we need strong state standards. Both and we can do both.
Great, great. Gwen asks, have there been any advances in retooling diesel-powered trucks to electric-powered? And I want to add on, and what about diesel school buses to electric? What can you tell us about those things?
Not much, other than I think it's a financial question. That these retoolings cost money, and some people might rather put that money into a new bus rather than retrofitting, an old bus. So I think it comes down to money and availability. EPA was giving out, grants for nearly free electric school buses in the last year. And many of those places that they were giving these buses away to were rural. And very few of them capitalized on it. Some did, but very few really got involved. So again, I think it's a financial question.
I saw the list for Illinois, and I noticed that Galesburg was one of the big, they really saw the opportunity there. And I think they're getting close to between 15 and 20 new buses for their, to replace the diesel buses on their fleet.
Yeah, I think Wade said today that Heron had replaced like a much of a fleet, and there were a dozen or so And that's in, deep Southern Illinois. And so there were places that looked at the economics of it, I'm sure, and said, it doesn't make sense not to. And others that might have a harder time.
Will there be more opportunities for that during with the Inflation Reduction Act and Build Back Better?
Yep. And it'll be up to us, again, as we talk more about advocacy, it'll be up to us to go to our school boards, to go to our, whatever your governing body for your schools or your districts might be, and say, have we looked at this? Can we look at this? Here's some information about this. And advocating for that, and making the case, hey, my kid has asthma, or my grandkid has asthma. I actually do have a child that has asthma, and we've done everything we could to keep that child off a school bus. And in fact, she drives now a plug-in hybrid, not just because we like that, but it impacts her health. It's a legitimate concern. So we as community need to go to our community leaders and advocate for these things.
Well, our time for questions is almost to the close. I want to make sure that we have time to share in the breakout rooms. Thank you again, Christina. I appreciate both the way you framed the problem for us and also helped us to see ways that we can impact it and work towards solutions. So I want to thank you all for that and thank everyone for coming. This is the time that we'll go to regional breakout rooms. So if you would like to rename yourself and put your number in front of your name, I think Kira is going to put that slide up again. We'll have these discussion questions and they'll be posted in our breakout rooms as well. There's the breakout room numbers are in the chat right now. Southern Illinois 1, Central Illinois 2, Chicago Northwest Suburbs 3, Wisconsin 4, Indiana 5, Chicago 6, and Northern Illinois 7. We'll all leave from our breakout rooms. And so before we go, I want to, on behalf of Faith in Place, wish you all a wonderful December, happy holidays for all who are celebrating. And we look forward to working with you in 2023 and a bright new year. Thank you all for being here. Let's go to breakouts.